Hello, third graders. So yesterday, or in our video for lesson 8, we were talking about some properties that can make multiplication just a little bit easier, especially as we get into bigger facts. Well, today we're going to talk about another property that can help us find multiplication facts of some really harder or more complicated multiplication problems, and it's called the distributive property. So let's take a look at this array up here, okay? So if I were to look here, I would say that I have 5 rows of 3, and we know that that equals 15. Okay, 5 rows of 3 equals 15. Now, if I were to take my paper and move them down and uncover a couple more rows, so let's make sure I do this so we get it nice and even. You can see it nice and clearly. Now, if we look at it, okay, now I'm going to shade in what I added on, okay, to make it a little bit clearer for you to see. So you can see the 2 rows that I added on, okay? So I started with 5 rows of 3, and then I've added on 2 more rows of 3, okay? So I'm going to say 2 rows of 3, and if we look at that, we know that that is 6. Well, let's take a look at this. How many 3s are there in 5 times 3? There are 5 3s. And how many 3s did you add to 5 times 3 to make it show all 7 rows? We added 2 3s. So I could do this. Let me show you what I could write to show what we just did with our arrays. I could say that 7 3s, which is what I was showing on my array, is the same thing as 5 3s plus 2 3s. Okay, 7 3s is the same thing or equal to 5 3s plus 2 3s. And we see that right here, okay? We had 5 rows of 3. We uncovered 2 more rows, which gave us 7 total rows. So 5 3s plus 2 3s is equal to 7 3s. Well, if we were thinking about it in multiplication, we can write this as a multiplication sentence. 7 3s is the same thing as saying 7 times 3. And you may be thinking, I don't know that off the top of my head. Well, remember, 5 times 3 we just solved, plus 2 times 3. So if you don't know what 7 times 3 is off the top of your head, you could do 5 times 3 plus 2 times 3. And that's a little bit simpler, right? We know what 5 times 3 is. We know what 2 times 3 is because we just did it in our array. We've already wrote those totals down. We've already done that work. So we know that 5 times 3 is 15. And we know that 2 times 3 is 6. So if we want to find the answer to 7 times 3, all we have to do is add 15 plus 6, which when we add those two together, we know we get 21. So we can take a bigger fact and we can break it down into smaller pieces, okay? Let's take a look at another example. So this time, we're going to use the same template, okay? We're going to stick with our groups of 3. I'm going to make it a little bit clearer for you. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So again, I'm going to cover up part of my array. So we only focus on the part that we need. So if we look at this one right here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows of 3, or 4 groups of 3, which we know is 4 times 3. And we can say 3, 6, 9, 12. Now, what if I wanted to find something else? What if I took this and I uncovered part of what we had? So if we look right here, I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to color in, shade in what I just uncovered, so that makes it a little easier on you to see the ones that I just uncovered. So the clear ones are the ones that we had earlier with 4 times 3. Well, I took my paper and I uncovered, if we look, I uncovered 1, 2, 3, 4 more rows of 3. Well, if we know the top one in 4 times 3 is 12, the bottom is still going to be 12. 4 times 3 is 12. Well, let's think about this here. I have 4 rows here, 4 rows here. How many total rows is that? 4 rows and 4 rows. That is 8 threes. 8 threes might seem like a lot to figure out, but if we look at our array, we figured it out by breaking it into 4 threes and 4 threes. Well, because you guys are doing so good on multiplication, we don't have to write it out like this anymore, do we? We know that 8 threes is the same thing as saying 8 times 3. And that 4 threes is the same thing as 4 times 3 plus 4 times 3. We already know, because we've already done the work, what 4 times 3 is. And we know that it is 12 plus 12. So to find the answer to 8 times 3, all we have to do is add these two together. 12 plus 12 is 24. So sometimes we can find bigger facts, the answer to bigger facts like this, by taking it and breaking it apart into smaller facts. But sometimes we might do it a different way. Still breaking apart a number, but doing it slightly different. So I'm going to show you our array again. Okay. So if we look up here, I have 10 rows of 3 total. Well, that's an awful big one. So what I'm going to do, if I was trying to figure out, let's say this. Okay, I'm going to draw a box around. Now I have an array. If I pay attention to just the part in the box, I have an array that shows 9 times 3. 9 is really, really close. It might be kind of hard to come up with on your own, but it's really, really close to 10, isn't it? And I know that 10 times 3 is much easier to solve because we can just count by tens. So let's do that now. We're going to count 10 times 3, okay? So we're going to count 10 threes. 10, 20, 30. That was super easy. So we know that 10 times 3 is 30. How am I going to use this fact, 10 times 3, to help me solve my 9 times 3? 10 and 9. 9 is how much less than 10, or how close to 10? It is 1 3 less. It is 1 3 less. So what I'm going to do is, in order to get to 9 threes from 10 threes, I'm just going to subtract one of my threes. And how much is 1 3? 1 3 is just 3. So I'm just going to subtract 3 from my 30. 30 minus 3 equals 27. So sometimes if you have a fact that's 9, it's so close to 10, and we can count by tens really easily. So maybe if you have a fact that's in the 9s, you just go up to the 10, figure it out, and then subtract 1 of its number. Let's take a look at another example. What if I were trying to find 8 times 3? Okay, that's kind of a big fact, right? But again, 8 times 3 is pretty close to 10 times 3. So we can count by threes 10 times to get 10 times 3. 10, 20, 30. I know that 8 is 2 less than 10. So I just need 2 less threes to get the answer to 8 times 3. Well, 2 times 3, 2 threes, or 2 times 3 is really easy. 3, 6. So if I want the answer to 8 times 3, I just need to take 30 minus 6. And 30 minus 6 is 24. So this might not be helpful all the time, but it's just another tool. And that's the thing about math, is that for some people it might be really, really helpful, but for others you may not like this. But it's good to have all these tools in your toolkit that you can pull out and try. So what I want you to do now is I want you to go do your practice pages and then go take your homework later. And if you have any questions, please let Mr. Rush and I know.